Most of us were introduced at some point in childhood to the story of Daedalus and Icarus. The tale is ancient, older than most of the moral frameworks we consciously live by. It has survived because it seems to say something permanent about human nature. Daedalus, the brilliant inventor and architect, finds himself imprisoned by King Minos on the island of Crete. Confined in a tall tower with his son Icarus, he faces a bleak reality. No ships will carry them away, no doors will open, no authority will show mercy. The prison is secure. The future appears sealed. But Daedalus refuses to accept confinement as fate. He observes the birds that fly freely overhead and conceives of an audacious solution. If humans cannot escape by land or sea, perhaps they can escape by air. With patience and ingenuity, he gathers feathers and binds them together with wax, crafting wings strong enough, he hopes, to carry both himself and his son to freedom. Before they leap, he offers careful instructions. Do not fly too low, where the sea will dampen the wings. Do not fly too high, where the sun will melt the wax. Stay in the middle. Balance is survival. We know what happens next. The escape begins successfully. They rise above the tower, above Crete, above the limits that once defined them. For a moment, they are free. But intoxicated by exhilaration, Icarus climbs higher and higher. The warmth of the sun weakens the wax. The feathers loosen. The wings disintegrate. He falls into the sea below. For centuries, this has been treated primarily as a cautionary tale. Do not be arrogant. Do not overreach. Control your impulses. Ambition can destroy you. Pride comes before a fall. And indeed, this interpretation contains wisdom. Human beings are vulnerable to excess. We can become intoxicated by our own success. We can forget our limitations. No meaningful life is possible without respect for risk. But if we linger longer with the myth, if we refuse it to a single moral, we discover something more complex and perhaps more urgent. This is not only a story about flying too high, it is also a story about refusing to remain imprisoned. Daedalus did not accept the tower as permanent. He did not teach his son to adapt quietly to confinement. He did not say, "The sky is dangerous, therefore stay here." Instead, he demonstrated that ingenuity and courage could create possibilities where none seemed to exist. The tragedy of Icarus is visible and dramatic. It captures our imagination because it is spectacular. But there is another tragedy hidden in the background, the tragedy of those who never attempt to fly at all. For every Icarus who risks too much, there are countless others who risk nothing. They remain in psychological towers, constructed not of stone, but of fear, habit, doubt, and inherited caution. They shrink their ambitions. They silence their desires. They tell themselves it is safer not to try. The myth contains two dangers, excess and paralysis. We tend to emphasize the first. Our cultures are rich in warnings about ambition. We know the stories of people destroyed by ego, by greed, by reckless self-belief. We can recite the disasters that follow unrestrained desire. But we speak less often about the slow suffocation of those who never test their wings, the people who remain in careers that drain them, the relationships that confine them, the lives shaped more by fear than by aspiration. There is a quiet despair in never leaving the tower. What makes this myth particularly powerful is the figure of Daedalus himself. He embodies something rare, balanced courage. He neither dismisses danger nor surrenders to it. He plans, he calculates, he invents. He respects the sun, but he does not worship the prison. He models what mature ambition looks like. The problem with Icarus was not that he tried to escape, it was that he lost moderation. His failure was not the desire for freedom, but the inability to regulate ecstasy. This distinction matters profoundly in our own lives. We often inherit attitudes toward risk from the dataless figures in our childhood, our parents, teachers, mentors. Some speak thoughtfully about both risks and rewards. They prepare us for the realities of failure while encouraging exploration. They warn us about arrogance, but also about timidity. Others, however, cannot bear the thought of flight at all. They may emphasize danger so heavily that any attempt at self-expansion feels reckless. Sometimes this is because they themselves never escaped their own towers. Fear can be passed down like an heirloom. As adults, we may internalize these voices. We might stop ourselves before even attempting something new, not because it is truly impossible, but because the idea of falling feels unbearable. Yet there is a deeper truth hidden in the myth. Safety is not the same as life. To avoid all risk is to accept confinement. To eliminate all possibility of falling is to eliminate all possibility of soaring. There must be a middle path, a disciplined daring, a willingness to attempt what matters while respecting real constraints. The goal is neither reckless ascent nor permanent imprisonment, but thoughtful flight. Perhaps the most mature reading of the myth is this: do not fly so high that you forget your limits, but do not stay so low that you forget your power. The sun is both dangerous and life-giving. Without its warmth, nothing grows. Without respect for its heat, we burn. Wisdom lies not in avoiding it entirely, but in learning how to approach it skillfully. The story endures because it reflects a permanent human tension. We long for freedom, for expansion, for transcendence. At the same time, we fear humiliation, collapse, and failure. The question is not whether we will face risk. We face it either way. There is risk in flying. There is risk in staying. The fall of Icarus is visible and tragic, but so too is the unseen tragedy of a life never tested, never stretched, never lifted even a little toward possibility. The myth does not ask us to avoid the sky. It asks us to navigate it wisely. And perhaps the greatest danger is not that we might fly too close to the sun, but that we might never feel its warmth at all.